Welcome class 10th. Here I am going to begin chapter 7, Glimpses of India. Hereby we will start part 1 of this chapter with the name A Baker from Goa. Let's know about the author. Lucio Rodriguez was a great literary genius who has written several articles in English and Konkani for the various magazines and periodicals. He served as the visiting professor of folklore at many universities, and also he worked as a professor of English in Mumbai and Goa. His essays were posthumously published under the title of Soil and Soul and Konkani Folk Tales. Let's get the introduction. The story revolves around the relevance of a baker in the Goa culture, which dates back to the time when Portuguese ruled over the city of Goa. The Portuguese may have left, but the bread makers continue to have an inevitable stature. In the story, the author recalls his childhood days and their excitement on seeing the baker. They were enthusiastic to the point that they would run to him as soon as they woke up, without even brushing their teeth. They still have the important place in Goa's culture and society. Elders still think fondly of the famous Portuguese loaves of bread. The family tradition of the bakers is now carried on by the new generation of bakers or patters in Goa. Even today, their family feast or the parties, they lose their charm without serving of the Goa's bread over there. See the chapter A Baker from Goa. This is a pen portrait of a traditional Goan village baker who still has an important place in his society. First paragraph. Our elders are often heard reminiscing nostalgically about those good old Portuguese days, the Portuguese and their famous loaves of bread. Those eaters of loaves might have vanished, but the makers are still there. Reminiscing nostalgically, that means to think fondly of the past. Loaves means a bread, that is actually the plural form of loaf, that is shaped and baked in a single piece and that can be sliced for eating. Story brings the readers back to the olden times when Portuguese ruled over Goa. They were immensely famous for their breads. The narrator has often found his elders thinking and fondly remembering about the past good old days and also how they used to share with them. The stories about the famous breads date back to the time when Portuguese ruled over Goa. They used to ponder about that time and tell, though the Portuguese have left the Goa, but the bakers of the bread still exist in the Goa state. We still have amongst us the mixers, the molders, and those who bake the loaves. Those age-old, time-tested furnaces still exist. The fire in the furnaces has not yet been extinguished. Molder is a person who molds dough into a shape. Furnaces, that is an enclosed structure in which materials are heated to the high temperature for baking. Extinguished, that means put out. The writer explains, though the original bakers of bread still not exist, but their legacy is being continued by the children, as everything about baking is still the same. That is like mixing, molding and baking the loaves of bread in the furnaces which have survived with the ravages of time. Hence, the fire in the furnaces that make these breads has not yet been extinguished. The third and jingle of the traditional baker's bamboo heralding his arrival in the morning can still be heard in some places. Maybe the father is not alive son still carries on the family profession. These bakers are even today known as padder in Goa. The sound of the thudding and jingling of the bamboo stick announcing the arrival of the baker can be still heard in the morning at some places. The family business is taken over in place of the father, now by their sons. But still, the bakers are being referred to be as padders in Goa. During our childhood in Goa, the bakers used to be our friend, companion, and guide. He used to come at least twice a day. Once he set out in the morning on his selling round, and then again when he returned after emptying his huge basket. Here the narrator recalls his childhood days and said that these bakers acted as a friend's companion and guide. These bakers used to visit twice a day. Once, while they started in the morning their round to sell his loaves, and the other time while returning back with his empty basket. After selling all the loaves, the baker used to visit twice a day. Once while he sat on the round to sell his loaves, and on the other time while returning back with his empty basket selling all the loaves. The jingling thud of his bamboo woke us up from sleep, and we ran to meet and greet him. Why was it so? Was it for the love of the loaf? Not at all. Jingling, just I've told you, that is a light metallic ringing sound. It was the light sound of his bamboo stick that woke the children up. They ran to meet and greet him. They became very excited to meet him. What would be the reason? Is it the love for the loaf of the bread? No, not at all. The loaves were bought by some Paskin or Beston, the maidservant of the house. What we longed for were those bread bangles which we choose carefully. Sometimes it was sweet bread of special make. Paskin and Beston. So these are the names of the maidservants of Goa. In fact, the bread loaves were collected by the maidservants of their houses. But these children were fond of the bread bangles, which were also called kankan. They collected them very carefully for themselves. Sometimes these bangles of the bread were specially made out of sweet bread. Children were fond of them. The baker made his musical entry on the scene with the jangling sound of his specially made bamboo staff. One hand supported the basket on his head and the other banged the bamboo on the ground. Staff means stick, bang means hit. The baker often made a musical entry by creating the sound like jang jang with his bamboo stick. He used to support his one hand on the basket on his head and the other banging the bamboo stick on the ground. He would greet the lady of the house with good morning and then place his basket on the vertical bamboo. We kids would be pushed aside with a mild rebuke and the loaves would be delivered to the servant. Rebuke means scolding. When the baker came, he used to call out the lady of the house and wished her good morning. And then he placed the basket on the bamboo stand. The parents used to scold the children and make them stand aside. And the loaves would be delivered then to the maidservant. But we would not give up. We would climb a bench or the parapet and peep into the basket. Somehow I can still recall the typical fragrance of those loaves. Loaves for the elders and the bangles for the children. Parapet stands for the railing or the low protective wall. Fragrance means a pleasant sweet smell. As the children were quite eager. They could not give up. They used to climb the bench or the railing or the wall to peep inside the basket. They were not ready to go aside. The narrator still recalls the aroma, the fragrance of the loaves that filled the air that moment. So he still mesmerized the time where the loaves for the elders and the bread bangles for the children. Then we did not even care to brush our teeth or wash our mouths properly. And why should we? Who could take the trouble of plucking the mango leaf for the toothbrush? And why was it necessary at all? The tiger never brushed his teeth. Hot tea could wash and clean up everything so nicely after all. The narrator still remembers clearly how they did not even bother to brush their teeth before having those bread bangles because it seemed very unnecessary effort for them to pluck mango leaves from the branches to use them for brushing their teeth. They considered brushing to be useless because the hot tea they thought could do effortlessly the same work washing their mouth, and they convinced themselves by saying that the animals like the tiger never brush their teeth, and thus used this excuse and enjoyed their bread bangles made of bread with their tea in the morning. Marriage gifts are meaningless without the sweet bread known as the bowl, just as party or a feast loses its charm without bread. Not enough can be said to show how important a baker can be for a village. Feast, that means party. Here it is said, bread is the important part of the Goan culture. The various kinds of the bread were important for all occasions in Goa. No marriage was complete until and unless the traditional bowl was served there. The baker's importance is quite essential in the Goan village. The lady of the house must prepare sandwiches on the occasions of her daughter's engagement. Cakes and bolinas are a must for Christmas as well as other festivals. Thus, the presence of the baker's furnace in the village is absolutely essential. The lady of the house, on the occasions like a daughter's engagement, used to prepare sandwiches, and bolinas are prepared for Christmas and other important festivals. You must know bol and bolinas. These are the varieties of the bread. Hence, the presence of the baker's furnace in the Goan village is very essential and important. The baker or the bread seller of those days had a peculiar dress known as the kabai. It was a single piece long frock reaching down to the knees. In our childhood, we saw bakers wearing a shirt and trousers which were shorter than full length ones and longer than half pants. Peculiar means strange. So here it is said that in the childhood days of the narrator, the bakers or the bread sellers, they used to wear a unique kind of knee-length frock dresses, which were typically known as kabais. He had seen them wearing shirts and pants whose length was shorter than the usual one. Even today, anyone who wears a half pant which reaches just below the knees invites the comment that he is dressed like a pedder. Hence, it turned to be the part of their identity so much that the narrator comments that even today, if anyone dares to go out in the streets wearing the half pants, he is referred to be the pedder or the baker. The baker usually collected his bills at the end of the month. Monthly accounts used to be recorded on some wall in pencil. Baking was indeed a profitable profession in the old days. Here it is informed, the baker usually collected his monthly bills at the end of every month. But They used to keep the whole record of the bills on the wall using the pencil on the same wall of the particular house. Baking has always been the profitable profession. In the old times, baker and his family never starved. He, his family, and his servants always looked happy and prosperous. The plump physique was an open testimony to this. Starved, that means to die with hunger. Prosperous, that means one marked success or economic well-being. Plump physique, that means pleasantly fat body. Open testimony, that stands for public statement about the character quality of someone. Here it is mentioned that the baker's family had never starved. He, his family, and his workers have always been happy and joyous. The bakers were found always to be fat and plumpy, which was the proof that he had a lot to eat, and hence was a proof of his richness and prosperity. Even today, any person with a jackfruit-like physical appearance is easily compared to a baker. Hence, even to this date, someone with a well-built body, just like the jackfruit, is compared easily to a baker. That mark the prosperity and richness of that person. Hence, we come to know that the baker was a respected person in the Goan society. In the olden times, he was not simply a vendor interested in selling what he made. He was very informal with the children and quite close to the elders and ladies. Hence, the presence of the baker's furnace in the Goan village was quite essential. I hope you have well understood the explanation. Thank you for watching the video.